Hello everyone and welcome back to part 7 of my Unraid series. Today we're going to be discussing Radarr and how to get it all configured and working with Unraid server. First off, we're going to go ahead and start by logging into your server. Once you're logged back in, go ahead and visit the apps section and look for the app called Radarr. And I typically stay with the BinHex versions. You can choose whichever ones you prefer, but in my case I prefer the BinHex. So we'll go ahead and hit install. Alright, so the install for it is fairly simple. There's really not much you have to change except these two paths. Alright, so host path number 2 will need to be changed to where the data is being downloaded to. Okay, so you'll go ahead and look for, I believe it's mount cache, and then select downloads. Alright, so there you go, you have mount cache downloads, and that's where the downloads are being downloaded to. And host path number 3, we're going to go ahead and select mount user media, and we can keep it here only because I just prefer to kind of keep things a little simple. So we're going to use mount user media, and this is where our movies will be stored at, or this is how it's going to recognize where we store the movies. We can go ahead and select movies here, and that should be it for that. It's pretty much it for this section. We'll go ahead and hit apply, and we'll just give it a minute to install. Alright, once the installation is completed, go ahead and hit done. And we'll go ahead and go to the Docker section. And you'll see that the BinHex Radarr Docker has been successfully installed. Go ahead and click on it. Go to Web UI. And it's going to ask you to go ahead and set up some type of authentication. It used to be where it didn't used to have this, but now they want to make sure that security, at least have some type of security to your Radarr server. So the authentication method we can go ahead and select here is going to be the browser pop-up, or you can select actually browser pop-up or login page. Actually, I think login page would be easier, so you don't have to worry about any additional login pages popping up. The authentication required, enabled. You could either enable this or disable it for local access via the LAN. If you know what you're doing, you can go ahead and do that. For the username, we're going to go ahead and type in admin, and then the password. Alright, and then once we have that typed in, go ahead and hit save. Alright, so once we have that, the application is all pretty much set up. The only thing that's remaining now is to settle these errors that are showing up in the system, and that will pretty much be it. And also we'll need to specify a directory in which we'll begin to add movies to. Alright, so let's go ahead and figure out these errors first. We'll go to system, so it says no download client available, no indexers available with automatic search enabled. Radarr will not provide any automatic search results, and no indexers available with RSS. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve the no download client is available. Okay, so let's go to settings, and what we'll need to do is we'll need to connect up our download client, which is qBittorrent, with VPN to our Radarr server. Okay, so look for qBittorrent. Okay, and you're going to go ahead and type in the IP address of it, but I believe we're using the same IP address of the server, so we can use localhost. We're going to use port 8080, I believe. If you don't know, you can reference it here. So if you go to Web UI, you'll see that we're using port 8080. Okay. So 8080 has been selected, admin, and then the password. Okay. And then that's going to be the username and password of the qBittorrent client. Okay. Next is going to be the Radarr category. That's basically going to show up on the tags whenever you, whenever it shows up in qBittorrent. Recent priority is going to be the last priority to use when grabbing movies that aired within 21 days. So if you have any newer movies that have just been recently released, you might want to go ahead and bump those up. Alright. And then older priority used when grabbing movies that have aired over 21 days. So these are like older movies. You can keep that like that. Initial state. Start, force start, or pause. We can go ahead and just leave that as start. And sequential order. You can go ahead and turn these on first and last. And content layout, we'll just keep it like that. And let's go ahead and test it. Alright, so I'm thinking it's probably going to be the password or the IP address. So let's go ahead and do 10.0.2.114. Let's go ahead and retest. Okay, and so I believe it's going to be something to do with the password. Alright, so it looks like the password never did get a chance to reset. It's actually the default. So, admin. I will change it later eventually, but for this case, we're just testing. So, test, and you can see how it did pass this part. Now it's saying queuing is not enabled. That's fine, we'll just put last. Retest, and now we got a green check. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit save. And that part is now set up. We'll go back to the system, and now we're down to 2. I believe this should get cleared whenever we set up the indexers. Once we set it up to Jackett. So we'll go ahead and need to access Jackett. So let's go ahead and open that up. Alright, and then here's Jackett. Let's go ahead and open this up. Alright, let's get logged in. And now we're set up in Jackett. Okay, so now we're logged into Jackett. So we're going to go ahead and take our API key. This is what we're going to use to allow the communication to occur between the Radarr server and Jackett whenever it starts to search through the various torrents. All right. So one of the other things that I did not touch on as we're kind of going through this is that for my Radarr server, I don't typically like to use all of these. I only use specific indexers for my movies. Now, TV shows are a different story. And I'll touch on that more whenever we cover Sonar. But for just this Radarr server, we're only going to use one indexer. Okay. You can use as many indexes as you want. It's totally up to you. It's your preference, my preference. I prefer just to use maybe 1 or 2 quality indexers. Alright, so we'll go ahead and go to the settings, and we'll go to the indexers, and we'll go ahead and select add indexer, and you're looking for TorsNab, and you can go ahead and rename this as, we'll change this to YTS, enable RSS, keep these all checked, keep these all turned on. The URL, we're going to go ahead and grab that. So we go down to YTS, look for the TorsNab feed. We'll go ahead and select that. It's been copied to the clipboard. Go back, go ahead and paste that URL right there. And then the API key, we'll go ahead and grab it to the top. And then we'll go ahead and drop that into the API key section. And we go ahead and test it. So once it comes back with a green check, I'll let you know that it's successfully connected to it. We'll go ahead and hit save. And that should be it. So let's go ahead and refresh. Okay, the error is now cleared, and that's all good to go. Now we have one last thing. We need to select a directory for these movies to be stored at. So let's try add new movie. Okay, and we'll go ahead and hit add new. Now it's going to give us an invalid path, so we'll need to get that fixed. So if we go to the if we go to settings and then go to media management, it's going to be under add root folder. Okay, and this is where you're going to go ahead and select the root folder where your media is going to be located. Okay, so in our case, since we did here for the media location, I think it's under this mapping here. So it's mount user media movies. We're going to go ahead and select just media, and that's how it's going to reference this path. Okay, since we did it this way. So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and that pretty much sets the path up. I like to enable this option where it will automatically rename. Okay, and then let's go back to movies and let's try again. Oh, I guess I gotta hit save. Alright, save changes, and then let's go back to movies and let's go ahead and try it again. And also the minimum availability, I like to select released. Hit add movie, and as you can see down here, it is completing its search, and then it'll go ahead and grab the movie and then add it over to qBittorrent, and then it'll begin to download. Depending on your internet speed, it will depend on how fast it gets it downloaded, and then it'll show up into the media folder in which you have set up. Alright, so while we're waiting, just want to touch on the downloads SMB share that we have set up. You'll notice that the incomplete folder is here for the download share. This basically just shows you that the download that we're downloading goes into the incomplete folder. Once it's completed, it should show up in this folder here by itself, and then with Radarr, it will begin the automatic import of this file into the media library, into the media folder that we have set up. And then it should automatically remove this download from the folder so we don't have to mess with it. While I'm sitting here watching the download, just also wanted to touch on whenever you're going through this process, or like your initial install, I noticed that, or I forgot to mention that if you go to options and you go to the BitTorrent section, the seating limits, you could basically set this to pause, because I believe that in order for the movie to actually be imported, it needs to be paused or completed. So I typically set this to 1. Now if you have requirements in which you have to seed for a certain amount of time, then set this however you need to. But in my case, I'm just doing total seating time reaches a minute. Okay, and then once the download has completed, then after a minute of the download being complete, then it should go into a completed state, and then Radarr or Sonar should, or in this case Radarr, should go ahead and remove this from the downloads section. All right. So it looks like this download is just about completed. Let's just give it another minute. All right, so it looks like the download is just nearing its completion. Okay, so you can see here what I was referring to earlier. The status now goes into seeding, and it's going to seed for roughly a minute, and then it should go into a completed state. Okay, now once that's done, then Radarr will see that. It will begin the import. So if we go and click on Radarr, we go to our activities, you'll now see that this hasn't yet updated. It's saying maybe 55 seconds, but it should be updating shortly. We can go ahead and force a refresh. And if we put our mouse over here, it'll say waiting to import. And so now begins the process where it actually imports this file from this folder into our media movie folder. And you can see that's been done. And it should also rename this file. So it should rip off any other stuff that it shouldn't be there, and it'll just make it look normal. Alright. Once that's completed, once everything's been imported over into this folder here, you'll notice that Radarr will proceed to go ahead and remove it from the download section in qB, and it'll be ready for its next selection of movie to be downloaded. And you can see how it's been removed. So there you go. All right, everyone, that will conclude for today's video for Radarr. The next one we'll go ahead and touch on is sonar. We'll start getting that set up, and then we'll go ahead and cover Plex and getting that set up as well. All right. If anybody has any questions or has any requests for me to cover, please feel free to drop those in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe. It really means a lot, and it really helps out the channel. All right, everyone. Until next time, thank you.